Good morning, Ms. Boulay. Are you ready?
Good morning, I am ready.
Thank you. With that, we're now on the record. Today is Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and it's 9 a.m. Ms. Castle, are you going to read our bailiff statement?
Yes. Good morning.
All right, then before you go, why don't we just stay off the record while you read the bailiff statement, and we'll go on once you're done. So go ahead.
Okay. So thank you, Chair Blank. This proceeding was filed by Public Service Company of Colorado on July 27, 2024. It was assigned PUC proceeding number 24A-0296E. In this proceeding, Public Service is seeking commission approval of its 2025 to 2027 Wildfire Mitigation Plan, its Public Safety Power Shutoff Plan, and its Wildfire Mitigation Adjustment Cost Recovery Mechanism. In addition to this public comment hearing, 2 additional public comment hearings have been scheduled for this proceeding, and the next one is on Tuesday, April 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. Prior to this hearing today, there was an earlier public comment hearing held on February 6th, and a commissioner's information meeting was held February 20th. Both of these are available on the PUC YouTube channel if you'd like to view them. The company's wildfire mitigation plan includes several measures and strategies to reduce the risk of utility-caused wildfire and enhance its response in the event of a wildfire occurs. The company groups these measures into 4 categories. The first category is situational awareness, which, according to the company, involves employing meteorological and software tools that enhance the company's ability to identify, assess, and respond to wildfires. The second category is system resiliency, in which the company proposes making investments in its infrastructure to reduce the risk of a utility-caused wildfire. These investments in transmission system resiliency upgrades, undergrounding power lines, regular inspections of power lines, and vegetation management to keep combustible growth cleared from power line areas. The third category is operational mitigation, which involves the company adjusting how it operates its electrical system to reduce the risk of a utility-caused wildfire. This includes using public safety power shutoffs, as well as activating power line settings, which allow for power lines to remain in service during periods of elevated wildfire risk, but with protection settings that mitigate the wildfire risk. The fourth category is customer support, which establishes plans to directly inform customers of wildfire risk and mitigation activities, and to provide direct customer assistance for customers with unique energy requirements that may be impacted by a public safety power shutoff or wildfire event. The company's application also includes its public safety power shutoff plan, which provides a framework of strategies and procedures the company will employ before, during, and after a power shutoff, like the one that occurred in response to the April 2024 wind event. The company projects its total projected budget for this application will be approximately $1.9 billion, which it proposes to recover through a wildfire mitigation adjustment rider. According to Public Service, this could result in an increase in residential customer bills of approximately $9 per month. This matter is set for hearing in early May. The commissioners will then later deliberate on all the issues before them and will likely issue a decision in August. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castle. With that, we're now on the record. Today is Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and it's 9 a.m. As Ms. Castle said, this is a public comment hearing and proceeding number 24A-0296E, Public Service Company of Colorado's application regarding its wildfire mitigation and power safety shutoff plans. I'm Eric Blank, the chair of the commission. Can my colleagues introduce themselves for the record, starting with Commissioner Gilman?
Good morning, this is Commissioner Megan Gilman.
Good morning, Commissioner Tom Platt.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly explain how a public comment hearing works. The public comment hearing is being webcast on the internet and will always be live, including during any breaks. There is a court reporter who is listening to this proceeding. She is going to take down what you say for the record. This comment hearing is formal, like a court proceeding, and we ask that the audience be respectful of the speakers that comment today. In our role as commissioners at this stage of the process, council has advised us to avoid answering questions or responding to statements. We are here to listen and learn and to make sure your comments are reflected in the record. Like a judge, we cannot engage in dialogue on the substance of this case pending before us. This case is ongoing and we will not make any decisions until after the evidentiary hearing. I will call on commenters today using the Zoom raise hand feature. If you wish to provide comments, please use that feature to raise your hand or turn on your video, and I will call on each commenter in turn. If you could keep your comments concise in respect to the other speakers, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'd like to emphasize that the commission weighs equally public comments received, whether written or orally. So we encourage you to follow up by following whatever you'd like in written form. Likewise, if you hear something today that you would like to comment on further, you can follow on written comments. You can follow with written comments into the record. These comments can be filed through the Commission's e-filing system, submitted via the Commission's online comment form, or emailed to dora_puc_website@state.co.us. In each case, specify this proceeding number, 24A-0296E. With that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here and to share your comments. These are challenging issues, and we certainly don't have all the answers, which is why hearing from each of you is so important. With that, Commissioner Gilman, any preliminary thoughts before we jump into the public comments?
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate all of you today. Really look forward to hearing from you. Obviously, this is an issue of intense public interest, both in terms of just the elevated risk of wildfire in our environment, and along with that, the risk of utility-caused wildfire, and also the public safety power shutoffs and all of the impacts that can have on customers and businesses. So really very much look forward to hearing from all of you. And this is one that impacts the public quite a bit. So really look forward to hearing your perspectives.
Thank you, Commissioner Plant.
Yes, I'd agree. Same. I really look forward to these public hearings, and particularly in this area, because this is, it can have such a profound impact on people's lives and on their businesses, on their communities, I'm looking forward to hearing the public response to the utilities proposal here for their wildfire mitigation plan, and incorporating these comments as we go forward in the proceeding. So thanks again.
With that, let's jump into it. Mr. Munchow, I see you've turned on your camera. Would you like to share some comments? Oh, you're muted, sir.
There we go. Good morning. Thank you for accepting public comment about the wildfire plan. I'm a consumer for Xcel Energy electricity. I did provide written comments to the filing, but I wanted to emphasize those comments here. I think I'm a pretty typical consumer of electricity within Colorado. I have medical conditions that rely on electricity for maintaining my health, and power interruptions are a significant impact on that. I'm also a small business owner. I am the principal of KPG Environmental Consulting Firm. I'm retired from the Forest Service. I was a firefighter, a wildland firefighter, and project manager for the U.S. Forest Service. So that's a little of my background. My main concern with the Wildfire Protection Plan, first of all, I think it's long overdue, and I'm glad that utilities were inspired to start taking their community responsibility to manage their infrastructure in a way that minimizes wildfire risk seriously. I've seen significant progress in my neighborhood in the red zone in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, Evergreen, Colorado. There have been significant projects making up for what I would think would be the bow wave of deferred maintenance backlog on mitigating around the transmission infrastructure they have, their lines, their transformers, and all of it. There's been a lot of work in the last few years, and so that's a great thing to see. My main concern with the plan relates to utility decision making and the lack of what I believe are economically balanced incentives related to the decision by a utility, and apparently a unilateral decision by a utility, to cut power and its potential impacts on both my business and my health. As you all are aware, at this point, the wildfire danger, especially in the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, is year-round. It's no longer seasonal. So that just magnifies the potential impacts of a unilateral decision to cut power to reduce the essentially economic liability of the utility. My understanding is that whoever's making the decision at the utility is going to be looking mainly at two things. They're going to be looking at potential liability and reputational liability. And then, of course, they also are going to be looking to some degree at the potential impact of a wildfire on their customer base. But frankly, I believe they're going to be focused on their economic liability. And in the plan, as they've written it, I don't see any checks and balances or balancing economic liability for them to just shut it off every time they think there might be a potential for their transmission to cause wildfire. And so I'd like the commission to consider different ways on how to influence that decision making in a more balanced way. Specifically, if they're going to shut off power, maybe there should be an economic disincentive where they're not allowed to charge transmission or fees for power during the time they shut it off. And that'll be a minor economic disincentive or counterbalancing incentive to shutting off power. But it'll at least give them pause to think about how they're shifting the cost burden onto their customer base without any balance on their side in terms of, oh, just shut it down. Every time it's going to get windy, shut it down. Because otherwise they're at risk for hundreds of millions of dollars of firefighting costs. Alternately, another idea might be to have some kind of review body or that is able to either second guess or approve a decision to shut down, like the PUC is in place. And I understand the PUC doesn't want to make the decision either. And, you know, I get it. But the reality is there has to be some countervailing incentives here for the utility. A third idea might be for the PUC to require the utility to establish a framework for a playing field for they can only shut it down within certain parameters. So in other words, circumscribe the utility's power to shut down unilaterally for a wildfire or wind event only if it falls within certain parameters related to, well, wildfire is very complicated, but a lot of the known variables related to wildfire severity. such as atmospheric fuels, all those kinds of things. The utility can figure that out. So circumscribe their decision authority such that, they don't have unilateral, unfettered authority to shut down the power. And I guess that's my main comment. I really think and hope that the commission has the opportunity here to think about providing some balance to the decision that the utility can take to shut down power, because frankly, the impacts to me as a consumer, and I'm sure a lot of my peers, related to health and business and many other aspects. I mean, I'm not in a nursing home yet, but there's some significant impacts that can take place when electricity is not provided. And I do believe there need to be countervailing economic factors weighing on the decision maker to unilaterally cut power in a attempt to reduce the corporate liability for the utility. And that, I guess, I don't need to spend more time. I hope I've made my point clearly. Happy to answer any questions or discussion if that's how you proceed or not. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate your service, and sorry to hear about your health problems. And agree with you that we'll be cautious about taking the decision on our own. Ms. Peterson?
Morning, thank you. I am calling in mostly with questions, if that's acceptable, some comments as well, but I was pretty impressed with the robustness of the wildfire mitigation plan. And I'm just wondering if the PUC and Excel sees wildfire mitigation as a symptom of the larger issue of extreme weather caused by climate change, and whether this is like a zoomed in part of a larger plan to mitigate the utilities' other climate change causing activities like methane leaks, for example. So that's my question, and then my follow-up comment is
I don't think you're going to get your question answered by us today, but appreciate it. So if you want to move on to your comment, that'd be great.
I'd like for the PUC and for utilities to be required to repair or to disassemble equipment that's causing methane leaks instead of repairing or replacing them and passing those costs on to consumers and locking us into more fossil fuel infrastructure in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Waters.
Good. Excuse me. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can.
All right. Let me pop over to my notes for today's hearing. So good morning, everyone. My name is Nina Waters. I serve as one of the Summit County's commissioners. And I want to thank, first off, the committee or the board commission, excuse me, for this opportunity to speak today regarding Excel's wildfire safety plan and their PSPS, their public safety power shutoff protocols. First, I just want to take a moment and highlight the positive impact Excel's AI camera network has had in detecting wildfires early. In Summit County alone, these cameras have assisted detecting over 6 wildfires just in the last summer of 2024. Sometimes those cameras were able to detect fires up to 10 minutes prior to the first 911 call, reporting those fires. And so I do want to applaud their work in implementing those cameras, and I think that is a great move. And I'm glad to see that there's a plan to deploy more of those across Excel's network. Early detection is critical in preventing these catastrophic wildfires, and we look forward as Summit County to working with Excel to identify locations for additional cameras to expand coverage and to enhance public safety. Now, I want to bring awareness to some other things that I think are really important within this plan. I think it's really important to connect stronger partnerships between Excel and us, Summit County, our local agencies, and particularly our emergency management departments and offices. This is essential. While communication about power shutoffs, first off, is crucial for those like Mr. Munchow, who have had medical needs where they need power, as well as business owners. I think it's very important that Excel not only share communications, but then actively they work with our local agencies to actively share their wildfire risk data consistently, making sure that they share their decision-making analysis behind what is the PSPS activations, and collaborating with us local agencies on vegetation management. Here in Summit County, many of our local partners are already doing really wonderful, great work in this space, and a coordinated effort would improve both wildfire mitigation and emergency preparedness. Finally, I have serious concerns about the financial burden of this plan on our communities. There's no doubt that a $2 billion investment in wildfire safety is a necessity, but funding it entirely through ratepayer increases rather than through Excel's own profits raises serious equity concerns. Low-income households and vulnerable residents should not bear the brunt of these costs. Additionally, any medical-related rebates for those reliant on electricity must be simple to access, and Excel must be held accountable for inadequate PSPS notifications, particularly when power shutoffs disrupt critical services, businesses, and schools. I urge you, commissioners, to ensure that Excel takes a more collaborative and equitable approach as this plan moves forward. I thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Waters. And if you could just make sure we have your local emergency responders contact information. And I know we've been reaching out to the people who have been most impacted by the prior events, but if you can make sure we have the right people from Summit County, I think
Absolutely.
that would be helpful.
I would be happy to share that. And you can always give me a call too. I got lots and lots.
Thank you, Ms. Waters. Mr. Glass.
Morning, commissioners. I also, like Mr. Menchow, also submitted some written comments, but I wanted to provide some of my comments in person, or as virtually as this is. So my name's Ephraim Glass, and I've been in the electric utility sector for 2 decades. I've worked in various departments and roles, including reliability, outage management, transmission planning, regulatory planning, and enterprise asset management. And I'm currently a utility consultant with a focus on wildfire mitigation. My work has included working with PG&E on wildfire mitigation in California. In reviewing Excel's wildfire mitigation plan, most of the measures they propose are good. However, I have several concerns. If Excel follows PG&E's lead, they'll likely attempt to focus most dollars on aging infrastructure or line hardening. Excel is, Excel is, I'm losing my voice. Excel is biased towards these options because most of the older lines are fully depreciated and they don't make much money off of those anymore. Line hardening does not reduce wildfire risks significantly. In fact, on a personal note, 2 of the fires in the past year near where I live in Roxborough were started by birds getting electrocuted on power lines and subsequently starting the grass below on fire. Line hardening would not have eliminated those fires, and even if lines were hardened, public safety power shutoffs would still be required during high wind, dry conditions. Through the course of my job, I've looked at the cost-benefit analysis of distribution line hardening using PG&E's data, and it is significantly less cost-effective than undergrounding the power lines. Line hardening was only cost-effective at the transmission level. For distribution lines, it was most cost-effective to underground the power lines in high fire risk areas. The main costs of outages are actually on the customer side and not the utility side. So Excel, as Mr. Menchow mentioned, there's not much of a financial incentive for Excel to do much, but for customers, it's a big impact financially. And I think with the last power safety shutoff, there were millions of dollars in lost economic revenue. I would expect similar results using Excel's data. I have published several papers on this topic. Feel free to Google them if you want, or they're also in my written comments. Underground lines have far lower maintenance costs than overhead lines through lower outage costs, fewer mechanical failures. There's no vegetation management costs. Though underground lines have a high upfront capital expenditure, their lower upkeep costs mean they're often lower cost in the long term. Ultimately, the cost for mitigating wildfires must match what customers are willing to pay. Increasingly, people need a more reliable electric grid. We have a larger workforce working from home, and the use of electric vehicles is increasing. Coloradans do not want to pay nearly 10% more on their bills for reduction in reliability. National surveys and surveys I've conducted clearly show customers are willing to pay more if their power lines are placed underground. They're not willing to spend a lot more on electric bills if their lines remain overhead and are still subject to public safety power shutoffs. Underground lines are not only immune from high wildfire risk weather events, they're also over 90% more reliable as compared to overhead lines. When you factor in what customers are willing to pay to put lines underground and for increased reliability, it's clear that undergrounding should be the primary solution towards reducing wildfire risks and should be the default design standard for new and rebuilt power lines. As the Commission contemplates Excel's wildfire mitigation plan, it's important to look at things holistically and not solely focus on wildfire mitigation as the main issue. Colorado has a target to have net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. One wildfire mitigation solution is missing from Excel's plan, and that's microgrids. Establishing microgrids in Colorado would keep customers in power even if power is lost on the primary lines when they need to be de-energized during a high fire risk period. By focusing on microgrids, Colorado can direct funding to simultaneously mitigate wildfire risk, improve reliability, and advance the state towards its renewable goals. If Excel is required to focus primarily on undergrounding and microgrids, they are already required to deliver power safely and cheaply. The math shows that undergrounding is often cheaper than overhead lines when looking at long-term costs. Excel should not be allowed to charge customers extra for a lower cost solution. They have the capability of borrowing money from investors for capital projects. Excel should do the same here and pay the money back using the savings from lower maintenance costs. To implement microgrids, Excel should offer customers higher incentives to install rooftop solar and batteries in key areas. This way, Excel, nor all of its customers, have to bear the full brunt of the cost to implement microgrids. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my thoughts on this matter. Thanks.
Thank you for appearing today and for your comments. Both greatly appreciated. Ms. Glusham.
Thank you, commissioners. Really always appreciate you taking this time, and you have many demands, so it's a generous thing you're doing. So thank you so very much. My name is Leslie Glustrom. The commissioners know me. I've been at the commission off and on for 20 odd years. But I really want to thank the other people who've shown up to testify and the really good testimony you've given. Thank you so much. I'm a citizen. I live in Boulder, so that means we're at high risk. Obviously, we all want to avoid fires. I live in the county where the Marshall Fire was, and we've, as Chairman Blank knows, we've had several other threats. And of course, I share that. But I am not in any way on board with the current approach. When we say to Excel, oh, we want you to do something, they just start drooling. Like, oh, you want us to spend money oh, we can spend money. And we've seen that here, 1.8 million in wildfire for 5 million and billion, I mean, billion, a billion on the distribution system plan with really high impacts on rates and absolutely no guarantee that we will actually help, but we can't guarantee it because it's just too big of a job. I would like to call your attention, I'm from Boulder, so I'd like to emphasize, of course, Warren, we are well briefed on this, although the points Mr. Glass made are not well briefed as far as I know, and they're really, really important. I would like to call your attention to the testimony of City of Boulder's witness, Warren Wendling, who old-time folks at the commission would remember Warren. He's got, more decades than I can count of experience. He's done a really detailed analysis, and it supports what Mr. Glass said, being really thoughtful, not just about where you underground and how you underground, so in order to improve the cost effectiveness. But then I'd also really like to call the commission's attention to the testimony of the utility consumer advocate, Scott England. I mean, all the staff and all the UCA have done a good job, but we don't have time to talk about all of them. But it's the cost issue that's so compelling. And Mr. England has done a really nice job of laying that out, pointing out that in the neighborhood of 86% of the costs that Excel has outlined, they want to call capital costs. They want to earn their weighted average cost of capital. That's why they're drooling, because the more they spend, the more profits they get. And we don't get any guarantee. And as several others, Mr. Munchow, Mr. Glass, have pointed out, the risks and the costs all fall to customers, while the benefits go to the shareholders, both in terms of profits and in terms of reduced liability. So this is really not a good plan. At the very least, with respect to this proceeding, at the very least, Excel should not be able to get their whack, whether it's cost of debt or securitization, something so that the billions that they do spend, they can get some cost recovery, but they don't get to profit off of this. It's, they've been neglecting the system and avoiding this issue and putting all the, the costs and the liability on their customers. And now they should not get to profit from it. So that's the first big thing. And then the second big thing really builds on what Mr. Glass has said. And he's, actually got a lot of experience at this cost benefit analysis. I don't. But I've come to the same conclusion just from, thinking about it, which is that, and I understand that you all are really, really busy. I get that. But what you're really busy doing is in large part putting expensive Band-Aids on a 20th century model. And it's past time to really think the way Mr. Glass has pointed out, which is that instead of using that 20th century model where we're extremely dependent on wires strung on tall towers and poles, which there's no way to defend. I mean, against the birds getting electrocuted or whatever, right? We just can't do that until we change to a whole new model. What I refer to as a 21st century model that says we're in a different century. As Ms. Peterson has pointed out, the extreme weather is coming. Excel has contributed a lot, frankly, to those, emissions over the years. They're making good progress. Thank you, Excel. But it's time to recognize that the 21st century is already not going to be like the 20th century, and it's going to get a lot worse going forward. 2034 is going to be so much worse than 2024, and 2044 so much worse than 2034, and on and on and on, decade after decade after decade. And the only way to really to think about this, I think, is that we need to build a system that will actually function for our children, our grandchildren, on down after that. And that involves, as Mr. Glass has pointed out, building islandable local microgrids. And in the past, it was like, well, that would be nice, but they're too expensive. But that's because, one, we don't really factor in the cost of transmission. The commission knows that all of a sudden, we're going to get that nice cheap solar enough. And then, oh, by the way, we need to spend $2 billion getting it to our customers from the last resource plan. And now we're like, oh, and now we need to spend close to $2 billion trying to avoid wildfire risk. And don't worry, we'll be doing a lot more of this because we get the profit from it. So it's time to start factoring those in. As Mr. Munchow so well pointed out, we're not factoring in the costs of outages. That all just falls to the customers, whether it's people who are at health risk because they just lost their power for their medical equipment, or it's businesses, or whatever it is. And all those costs just go to customers, and the commission doesn't monetize those at all. So when we do, I think we'll see that it actually makes a lot better sense to spend our money building a new 21st century model. Depends on local generation, local storage, islandable, not just all of that feeding into the big grid, but make it self-contained. Sometimes we refer to it as a local circular economy for electrons. We've got to leave that 20th century model behind, because as you can see, the band-aids for that system are getting to be really expensive, and they're going to get a lot more expensive. So I get that your structures aren't really designed to help you, but we got 3 great commissioners. Y'all are great. And, made some progress thanks to Commissioner Plan on the virtual power plant issue. Thank you so very much. But we need to do much, 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 much more. We need to do it really quickly. And we need to avoid spending a lot of money on expensive band-aids that give us no guarantee. XL can spend money forever, and we'll still have huge fire risk, as Mr. Munchow, Mr. Glass, and others have pointed out. So again, I want to thank you, commissioners, always for your kindness and your generosity and your incredibly hard work. But please, at the very least, recognize that all this hard work is spent trying to shore up a model that we need to leave behind and move into a whole new 21st century model, because we've only just begun with the extreme weather. Tomorrow we're going to see big winds again. Heaven only knows what's going to happen, right? So, and it's going to be much, 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 much worse as we go through this century. So let's get started now. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Questrom. Greatly appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak now? Going once, going twice. Why don't we take a break till 10 o'clock and come back at 10. Thanks all. We're back in the record in the Public Service Company of Colorado Wildfire Mitigation and Public Power Safety Shutoff Plan application. Is there anyone else who'd like to offer public comment today? If you could turn on your camera or raise your hand, that'd be greatly appreciated. Ms. Glustrom,
Short. Very short.
fire away. We're here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Chairman. Very, very short. It occurs to me, there's going to be a city council meeting tonight in Boulder, and we'll be reviewing the partnership with Excel. And obviously, Boulder was the place where the April Public Service Power Shutoff, the PSPS, had a very huge impact, as well as other locations. But I've heard, frankly, some council members say, well, I wish the commission would listen to our meeting tonight, because you'll hear their feelings about wildfire mitigation, Excel's approach. Of course, my opinion is telling us you're going to do a PSPS is like better than not telling us, but it's really not the standard we want to achieve. We want a system that doesn't require nearly as many. So anyways, there's a desire that the commissioners might listen to the Boulder City Council meeting tonight. I don't know whether you will, but I thought I'd pass that on. So thanks again, commissioners. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, Ms. Glustrom, if you could arrange I don't know if there's a transcript or a recording or a summary or minutes, but you might, I'd encourage you to put it into the record. If you or
Thank you,
the
Chairman
city of
Blank.
Boulder. Yeah,
Thank you,
if somebody
Chairman
would,
Blank.
that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. There will be a recording of the meeting, and somebody will figure out how to put, either me or the city of Boulder. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Appreciated. Mr. Munchow, I see your camera's back on. Would you care to add or just listening in?
Just listening in. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right. Why don't we reconvene at 10:40, and if the team can put up a sign saying we're reconvening at 10:40, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Welcome back. We're on the record again in the Public Service Company of Colorado Wildfire Mitigation and Public Power Safety Shutoff Plan application. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? Please raise their hand or turn on their camera. With that, Mr. Gomez, Ms. Harper, should we come back in 15 minutes or would it be okay to adjourn now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that given that the meeting was noticed or the hearing was noticed to go until 11, to maybe come back in 15 minutes for one last go at it.
One last try,
Yeah.
one last offer.
I think
All
that'll
right.
work.
With that, we're on break to 10:55. If you could update the notice on the screen, that'd be great. See everybody in 15. Welcome back. We're now on the record again in the Public Service Company Wildfire Mitigation and Public Power Safety Shutoff Plan application proceeding. Any final comments before we adjourn? Well, just want to thank everybody for appearing and sharing their thoughts. As always, I learned a lot, and so Mr. Munchow, if there's things we can do, particularly on your healthcare, make sure we're communicating better, please let us know. With that, Commissioner Gilman, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just want to thank the speakers today, and thanks for the kind of really technically detailed opinions and views and suggestions. And feel free to submit any written comments that would help to make this record more robust. And really appreciate it and look forward to the next opportunity to hear from the public.
Commissioner Plant?
Yeah, thanks. I'd echo those comments. I appreciate the time everybody put into reading through the plans and the testimony and coming in with some thoughtful comments that'll help us as we deliberate through this proceeding. So thank you very much.
Again, greatly appreciated. Thanks all. And with that, we're adjourned. Thanks.